How do we approach challenge? Sometimes we turn away. Sometimes we dive in. And sometimes we sidle up next to it, gently stir the water with a big toe. Maybe sit with our feet dangling in as we look across the pond and wonder. So I put a challenge before myself here now. It's about trying to explain what might be my life's work here, this waves of focus, this guide for wandering minds, ADHD, and beyond. This course that I've put together over time. I want to be able to describe it in as short and simple way as possible in this episode today. Now, how the heck am I going to do that? Welcome to the Rhythms of Focus podcast for wandering minds who are tired of feeling that they have to force themselves to make things happen. Maybe know that when things line up well, that tendency to wander actually becomes a powerful wave of focus. I'm Dr. Kourosh Dini, fellow wandering mind. It wasn't that long ago that I struggled to make things happen, whether it was to remember when to pay a bill, do things over time, or look at a list without feeling repulsed. Fast forward through years of study and practice, I can now not only deal with the world, I can be creative, playful, and engage in the ways that make sense to me. I can be a doctor, musician, father, still play games in the evenings. I've created this podcast to share these ideas so you can do the same, hopefully with a lot less of the troubles I needed to go through to get here. Whether you have ADHD, deal with anxiety, or just suffer from a powerfully creative spirit, I invite you to join me in this weekly podcast to start finding your own way to a calmer, more intuitive space. Please note, I'm not functioning as your doctor, psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, therapist, or otherwise. This is here for education, if not entertainment, and I do hope you enjoy it. When we live and breathe something, it can be difficult to say what it's about to someone who doesn't live and breathe that same thing. Sometimes we have some vision in our head. It could be of a simple project, a vision of a deck we're building. Maybe some stories come to mind that we want to describe. Whatever it is, it's somehow hard to explain. Sometimes it's even hard to explain it to ourselves. There's this hilarious set of YouTube videos called Crocodile and Cube. I'll link to it in the show notes. There's this one character. He hears something in his mind, this music that he wants to create. And this friend of his that's looking to help him make that become a reality. They're saying, okay, one person tells the story of what they want to hear, and the other person is trying to put it together, trying to make it so that it's ready for the world. This wonderful metaphor for the parts that can live within ourselves. Wandering minds tend to connect with this depth and breadth of experience, this reality that feels alive. And then the need to translate that somehow into words. Words can feel hollow and brittle at times, unless they're really backed up by that sense of reality within them. How do we translate these ideas, these images, these some things within our minds into words and images that others can see? Somehow we do. Artists, authors, creators, we all practice, define, refine over time, and eventually come up with maybe not just a single story, but maybe many stories, perspectives. Well, anyway, enough rambling. What are the waves of focus? Well, it's really about 6 different things, different perspectives, honestly, which is probably why I've had such a tough time explaining it. But I'll break them all down for you here and give them to you one at a time. Let's see how this goes. First off, the waves of focus is a goal. It's this goal to move from feeling that we have to force ourselves to do things to where we feel that we can genuinely decide and act of our own accord, our own will. When we do, we tend to not only find greater meaning to our days, it also can feel more alive. We can take things on in our own time, where we can more readily find and engage the world with those inherent spirits of play and care that are within us. Secondly, the waves of focus is a philosophy that the reason why we force ourselves is because we don't trust ourselves. We drop things, we lose things, we forget things, we stumble through the social world and more. We lose trust that we can make things happen of our own will, because why wouldn't we? We haven't been able to prove to ourselves otherwise. As an example, let's say a thought comes to mind, and suddenly it's like, I gotta act on this now, while it's on my mind, because otherwise it'll be gone. Which then means we either have to pursue that thing, or we drop the other thing we were just doing. And either way, we lose. We drop one or the other. But what we've lost isn't just dropping one project for another, leaving this messy pile either way. It's actually that we've lost something deeper, our sense that we can make a decision, this seeming luxury. So we give ourselves up to these forces around us, if not within us, feeling no recourse. We force ourselves through many different methods, including the one that I just mentioned, but often similar behind them are deadlines, shame, anxiety. Sometimes we ask other people to be our reminders, asking the world to take on our agency because we feel we have none. And it stems from this lack of trust in our own abilities. Trust is a feeling, a sense that something will continue to behave in the way it's been behaving so that we can rely on it. Trust can't be forced, can't be willed into being. It's not a decision. So in order for us to trust ourselves, we have to genuinely believe that we can, for example, set something aside and return. What's nice about trust in ourselves and in how we relate to the world around us is that it can be developed over time. It's not something that's just stuck one way or the other. In restoring that trust, we then also restore that sense of agency, that skill and ability to decide and engage non-reactively. Together, trust and agency become this muscle we can exercise and build over time. As we learn what we can trust within ourselves, we learn how we can work with our shifting attention, our ability to engage the things that are in front of us, that are meaningful to us. We start to be able to guide that inherent sense of play and care within ourselves. Trust and agency, then, are these central tenets of any meaningful productivity, not action, not even the task. Whether we're looking at sport, study, art, leisure, business, whatever the field, trust and agency are central and can be exercised over time. All right, so first, the waves of focus is this goal of moving away from force and towards a genuine trust in our own abilities. Second is this philosophy that we can practice this sense of agency to help us get there. Third now is that the waves of focus is a metaphor of experience, this boat on a sea of emotion. As wandering minds, we exist often in this now, profoundly so. It's constrained, but it's also a magnified world. It is our world. We can't see too far off, but what we do see is here and now and looms large. We can explore deeply in this moment, but then we might lose sight of the rest of the world around us because that is our lens of consciousness. The periphery, the beyond, the not now, whether days or even seconds away, can feel unreal. We can sense them maybe as a melding blend of dream, fear, and fantasy that flow into this moment. The storms, the winds, the desire, regret, worry, demands, urgency, commitments, they all hit us that much stronger within the now, this part of our world. Meanwhile, we must do the things. Write the report, clean the garage, do the dishes. But I want to spend time with my friend, or play a game, or scroll on my phone. How does anyone do anything? It can be difficult to deliberately set sail in any particular direction when there are so many different waves hitting us from every different way. While we may not trust ourselves, we often do trust the power of these winds and waters around us. Urgency, desire, the shiny, the on fire. We can grab onto those. So, first, the waves of focus is this goal of moving away from force to trust. Second, it's a philosophy that our sense of agency is center and can be exercised. Third is this metaphor of a boat in the winds and waters of emotion, in which we can often feel at the mercy of these elements. Fourth, now, is that the waves of focus is also a set of tools that helps us to manage, that helps us to sail in this sea. There are quite a number of tools within the methodology, 3 of which I'm certain you know very well already. These are the calendar, alerts, and pen and paper. And any of these can be physical or digital analogs. The waves of focus adds a set of additional tools, 3 of which probably give it its most unique nature. These are the anchor, the visit, and the guide. Together with calendar, alerts, pen and paper, these tools create the foundational supports, and they can rest on top of whatever else you use. The waves of focus are not meant to supplant whatever system you've got. Whatever you've been building has been built over a lifetime. Some of it works, some of it may not. But rather than replace it, it might be better to build trust where you can, on top of what already you have working for you. Evolution more than revolution. Strengthen what works, and then maybe plant seeds for what might feel missing. All right, so first, we have the goal of force to trust. Second, this philosophy of agency and trust as being this central muscle to exercise. Third is a metaphor of the boat on water. Fourth is a set of tools. Now, fifth, the waves of focus is a framework, starting with the moment. Scattered, exhausted, bored, excited. How do we decide from this moment where and how to sail next, in the now? With practice, we can then start taking that decision, that intention of where we want to go, whether it's about something enjoyable or something we feel we must do. And consider how we can engage in a way that respects ourselves, in a way that honors the past self that put it there, or in a way that can care for a future self that we might want to eventually be at something we want to do. We can practice disengaging from things that we're not done with, particularly if we're susceptible to that hyper-focus state. When we can start doing that, though, we can start making regular visits. We start gathering momentum, this blend of motivation and the world aligning. We can start taking on larger and larger projects then, distance ourselves from deadlines, and more. When we practice engaging this one thing and returning, we can start branching out to more intentions, creating multiple rhythms, dealing with the things that we want, the things we need, sometimes even the things we impulsively do, gently and gradually shaping our environments. Rather than work by some unsustainable binge or some prescribed notions, we can start taking the lists, the inboxes, the email, and the rest, all these things that inevitably decay around us, and transform them so that they can better support us rather than us feel enslaved by them. Lastly, sixth, the waves of focus are a practice, a set of exercises, specially arranged to allow one to grow the skills gently and over time, so that they build on each other. Rather than confront an inbox, for example, that feels crushing, we can start with the points that need to be in place before we get there. And once exercised, that's where we can start transforming it to become something that supports us. So, all in all, the waves of focus are not about forcing ourselves to do anything. It's about standing at the edge of that water, that risk, that thing in front of us. Maybe with our feet in the pool, considering from this depth of self, what would we like to do, if anything at all? What makes sense in the world of desire, responsibility, and more in this moment? And then how can I start to engage that over time, respecting the present self, honoring the past self, and caring for our future selves? Does it make sense to, at the moment, stare at the clouds? Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it's about being ready to set sail and see what's out there. And if so, we've got the tools and the practice to make that happen. Before we move to today's musical piece, I wanted to let you know that my Waves of Focus course is currently open for enrollment up until November 2nd. In the course, we'll expand on many of the ideas from this podcast with structured practices, community support, and direct guidance from myself. we'll work together to help you develop sustainable approaches to a meaningful productivity that honors your sense of a wandering mind. If what we discussed today resonates with you, this might be the perfect time to take that next step. Visit wavesoffocus.com for all the details. And now here's today's musical offering. Frank Zappa once called music wiggling, dancing air molecules. I like that picture. I like to think of it as a series of waves all flowing through that air to caress or crash onto our eardrums. How is it that we're able to make sense of the zillions of things that all come sloshing about around us at once? Boggles my mind, but I think the same parallel is there for our minds in general. Today's piece is an improvisation. It's called The Dust Cleared, and I hope you enjoy it.